They're not allowed to have meat, and that specifically, or maybe sometimes on Wednesday and Friday. Was there any truth to that?
Yes. Now, according to the Catholic doctrine, eating meat is looked at as feasting. You get? So, because this is a season where we have to be too humble before God and repent to Him, Catholics are asked to abstain from feasting, of which eating meat looks like feasting, is looked at as feasting, such that they can look as humble as it takes before God, such that their prayers, special prayers, especially in the line of repentance is concerned, are received and understood and answered by the Lord their God. So that is why on Wednesdays and Fridays, they are asked not to eat meat, because in eating meat they would look like they are feasting, which would not be a right thing before God at a time of repentance. That is the information I gathered here and that I knew about not eating meat during the Lenten season by Catholics.
Click.
Yes, I am.
Yes,
I
I
hope
am.
that you actually repent, since you're one of the biggest Catholic churches.
Yes, I am a Catholic.
At
Yes, I am.
Ruga Church.
After talking to you here, I'll be part of Mass and
receive the ashes to start my Lenten season. Thank you. Thank you so much for that prayer. May He forgive you too.
Well, that was Jordan Lukoma, who happens to be at the Catholic at Rubaga Cathedral, where so many Catholics have flocked to the church to make sure that they participate as they get ash smeared onto their foreheads to make sure that they commence the Lenten season in the right way, characterized by repentance from sin. Moving on from that, the Ministry of Agriculture and More Industry and Fisheries has commissioned a solar-powered water pumping and lightning system at the Fisheries Training Institute in Bugonga in Tebe. The 3,500-litre capacity facility aims at providing cost-saving solutions for utility bills related to water and electricity, addressing the institute's high daily water consumption. Ronald Segawa, the Undersecretary to the Ministry of MIFE, represented Permanent Secretary Major General David Kasura Chomkama during his facilities commissioning. Segawa urged the government to increase funding in its institutions to enhance proper service delivery. I beg your pardon.
1-0. I want to tell you that we have been able to install a 9.6 kilowatt solar generating system to power both the water pumping system and charging batteries for lighting critical areas. Mr. PS, for lighting purpose, the concern was when power is off, students are unable to revise. When power is off, and we don't have fuel in the generator, the school gets dark, and that is a security threat.
The end of financial year 2022-23, this institute received resources to the tune of 600 million in June, and this money was meant for 3 activities. Was meant for the solar-powered pumping system. It was meant for the development of the curriculum and also mapping of institutions where we can do student placement at the end of the semester. I want to report to you, our guests of honor, that all these 3 activities have been accomplished. On average, our guest of honor, the institute spends 3.6 million on water per month and 3 million on electricity. And we envisage that in the next, by the close of 6 years, the money that has been injected in these systems will have already been paid back. And therefore, we make savings where we can put for other investments.
The issue of funding to government institutions. Over time, the funding to government institutions has reduced. And because of that, government has allowed schools and institution leaders to creatively find out how they can bring on board private students. I'm happy that the principal has told me that the enrollment here is about 260 students and about 120 students are sponsored by government and 140 are private students.
Minister for Lands Judith Nabakova has instructed the Lands Committee of Nakalama Sub-County in Iganga District to provide statements on alleged land grabbing. Nabakova, in a meeting with locals, orchestrated the arrest of Tycoon Haji Hamudan Nkobe and 2 district officials accused of encroaching on government land. Locals and leaders accuse Iganga district officials of involvement in land disputes, alleging that they are no full sale of significant government land to wealthy individuals. They call on the minister to launch investigations.
Ni consent je bakola ngegomba tulitegeyire era nga twagala ku nsonga edo nze nga chairman banegerera
kubiri baliranga beigombola lino baliwo araja mwasaiga nze tigabana wulira nze tigabana nga kuna igombolola bwe abali ekyapa ekindi ate kwakuba muntu wundi nali nze tigabana naki nze tigabana nga kuna igombolola ekyapa ekyange kirimanga
Haji Hamdan, what we are going to do,
enyabo.
if there is a police officer should take you, you go and he retrieves all those documents from you. The sub-county officials have been involved, the area land committee members have been involved, the district officials have been involved, and also members who used their influence as being part of the district land boards to make sure that they share the land that belongs to government. It is our policy as government to protect government land. You have seen there is a school that has existed for almost 40 years. There is a sub-county headquarters. There are many plans to develop this area. So that's why we are entering into a deeper investigations, and I've directed the RDC to supervise this investigation with the chairperson in
The poor performance of schools under the UPE program in Kabale district has been attributed to owners of private schools recruiting high-achieving students, particularly at the candidate stage. Deputy Head Teacher of Chigezi High School Primary David Magara reveals that the pupils and parents have promised scholarships, resulting in a decline in the number of well-performing students. The 2022 PLE results underscore this trend, showing that learners from private schools outperformed their counterparts from UPE schools. Moses Bwenje Tumuijushe, the district education officer, condemned this practice, acknowledging that the leaders have limited control over it.
Private schools are there to actually cheat from us candidates, more especially. They have a habit of supporting well-performing pupils, more especially at that candidate class level, and they come for them, just seducing them to give them scholarship and some other little benefits. And eventually, because children here from low socio-economic backgrounds, they tend to go because somewhere they have nothing else to do to support themselves in schools.
That's why the number has not shoot up as it is supposed to be. Take an example, we have a problem of runners being fished by private schools, fishing government schools to private, promising them heaven and earth.
And as a result, you find that most of the best well-performing pupils in government schools have been taken, and at the end of the day you find private schools have bigger numbers of candidates performing better, and in government schools we have fewer because somewhere those who are performing well in their schools would have been our candidates, but because they were seduced to go, because they were provided by those small benefits, then they decided to leave.
A child has been, or a learner has been in school, maybe from P1 to P6, and this person targets that very learner when he or she has been promoted to P7. Just thinking that when he goes to that school, will make good grades that will save the school. So to me, it is not good.
In more stories, Uganda has been commended for giving alternative livelihoods like iron sheds, gods, and skilling of reformed warriors in Karamoja sub-region. An animal expert at IGAD, Dr. Wamalwa Chinywanjui, says that cattle rustling has rendered many pastoralist communities in IGAD member states poor and underdeveloped. This was at the closure of the 2 days meeting organized by IGAD and Cross-Border Community Resilience in Moroto District, Karamoja sub-region.
Pastoralist communities have practiced cattle rustling as a culture in order to increase their wealth and animals for bride price. The vice has been commercialized. Experts at IGAD and stakeholders from the member states say these areas are underdeveloped.
Cattle rates, the livestock population is diminishing over time.
By South Sudan, one of participants asked that even children are kidnapped along with the animals, so they will go and become hunters.
The animal expert at IGAD, Dr. Wamalwa Chinywanjui, commends Uganda giving alternative livelihoods to cattle rustlers.
By given some options in life, surrender the guns and get the options in life, and it has helped to reduce this menace.
In the final day of the meeting, the land policies in IGAD member states were at the forefront.
Is slowly getting wasted. Where there used to be pasture, you realize that it is turning slowly to be a bare ground. Either is it because of the population of the livestock or because of the other human activities.
This gazetting of livestock corridors or gazetting grazing areas, dry season, wet season grazing areas, I think it's really crucial in keeping or supporting mobility of pastoralists together with the cross-border or the trans-Manch protocol, and let
bringing the women's agenda in the land issues. You know, land is key. Right now, for us, we access and cultivate food. In this land, we access, but we don't own it. When it is time for selling land, fine, we women are out.
Uganda was commended for improving land issues.
Uganda, the rangelands have got its own policy plus enabling act to actually, recognition was given to pastoralism.
So far, there is need for cross-border migratory certificates to regulate cross-border movements.
That when you are crossing the border, the animal health authorities, the security people will know that that's your livestock. You came in with a certain number of livestock, and the health authorities know that you have vaccinated your animals are clean, then you are allowed to move. But and the certificate will be administered by the member states' authorities.
They want more attention on these corridors.
The arid lands, the range lands is a very productive area, and I think member states have now realized that this area is worth investing in. It makes a very big contribution to the GDP of member states, especially livestock. And if the area becomes prosperous, then all these issues like conflict, poverty will be reduced.
Adan says cattle rustling should be dealt with as it undermines development. Identifying animal cattle rustling is highest in South Sudan, Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda. Amdad District Chairperson Joseph Nangole calls for more signing of cross-border resource sharing agreements to reduce pastoralists' suffering during drought.
We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be back with more news for you.
Fred!
Osmosis.
Freddy! Fred Dollar, my boss, CEO Inojo, the general of generals, the conqueror of conquerors, the first and the final, the sky above the skies, the promised land, the terms and the conditions, the international king crocodile, the source of the
Osmosis.
Nile.
I don't have money today.
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting it. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
In the production process of Aquafina, we expertly filter every drop, providing clear and perfect tasting water to help you keep hydrated with the added benefit of minerals. Aquafina is bottled by Pepsi Cola International in Uganda and is available at only 1,000 shillings.
The organizing committee of the Janan Womb Day Celebrations 2024 wishes to inform all invited guests that you are requested to take COVID-19 tests between the 13th and the 14th of February at the following venues. Public officials, you will take your tests at the Office of the Prime Minister, Conference Hall, Platinum Wing, Mulago Hospital, and Platinum Lumumba Avenue. Religious leaders, you will take your tests at the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda offices.
Ebiseera by'okuzaayo abaana mu masomero tebiteekwa kukaluubiriza n'akatono. Eno kusimba nnyiriri mpanvu kano kalipagano ka bidduka. Simanya kuzunga na banka siripsi. Kati osobola okusasula school fees z'omwana wo ate n'okola n'ebirala ntoko ku ssimu ye ey'omu ngalo. Ekikola kyangu nnyo. Nyiga bunyizi *165*8 ogoberera ebikulagiriddwa oba okozese app ya MTN Momo. Ate kati okola ki olwaleero? MTN Mobile Money Uganda Limited erungamizibwa banka enkulu ya Uganda.
It is also bringing back the other night economy. People now can trade in the night.
The road is of good quality. Vehicles passing to Congo, they now use this road, shortcut.
You see very many new apartments which have come up.
The percentage of road network which is becoming in a good condition has gone up.
We just need to make sure it's sustainable and have a follow-on program to ensure that the infrastructure does not collapse.
That when we come to the end, we'll maintain the momentum of building roads and making sure people are in safe places.
The local governments, whereas they are involved in the implementation process right now, they should be preparing their capacity to take over the maintenance and management of these facilities.
Don't miss the US Meet documentary on UBC TV on the 19th February 2024 at 9:30 p.m. and 20th February 2024 at 7:45 p.m. showcasing infrastructural development in municipalities.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, Busoga segment. Learn about how Busoga emerged from being a pawn of Buganda and Bunyoro to a mainstream kingdom in Uganda.
Defeated princes and defeated generals used the Busoga to reinvent themselves.
The Baisengovi were from Bunyoro.
So Namutukura also came as a prince.
He crossed River Nile with 11 clans from Bunyoro.
This area where we are was controlled by people who ran away from Buganda.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are similar people.
We are one. Use that word, pamoja.
We all bleed red.
Premiering Wednesday, 21st February 2024 at 5 to 9:30 p.m. at the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Welcome back from that short commercial break. We continue with UBC Lunchtime News, where the Equal Opportunities Commission has called on the government and other responsible parties to ensure sensitization and awareness of the parish development model program in remote areas, aiming to transform the livelihoods of the people. This call comes in response to the Regional Development Report, which highlights that certain sub-regions including Karamoja, Bukedi, Western, among others, continue to face high poverty levels, primarily due to issues such as ignorance about government programs like the PDM. James Mugisha, the Commissioner for Compliance and Enforcement in the EOC, communicated this during an engagement with the Regional Development Program on compliance with gender and equity requirements for the financial year 2024-2025. The engagement took place at the Equal Opportunities headquarters in Kampala.
Targeting criteria that picks up the extremely vulnerable, and PDM doesn't seem to be good enough.
One of the challenges is the complexity of the program, and because of that, when we are getting those reports from the MDS, we do not get reporting on affirmative action areas that the program should concern itself with. We are getting reports at national level. So the reporting that we have as a program is limited and is not the true reflection of what is on ground.
That the criteria that was set up to now, the marginalized persons, the persons with disability, the youth, older persons are not fully participating. So they are calling upon the Equal Opportunities Commission to see how they can help. If the target was the 39% of the people that were out of the money economy, how do we help to make sure that the 39% come in and participate in government programs? As we stand right now, the set criteria that we are using as a government is leaving out those marginalized persons, and we are calling everyone that is a player in this to participate. Secondly, the parish chiefs that we are supposed to be feeding government with information, ever since this program of parish development model started, they have not participated in that. We are only focusing on one pillar of financial inclusion, yet the model has 7 pillars. So we are calling upon all players that are supposed to give information, especially the pillar number 6 of data should actually be put in place so that everyone in this country is informed on the progress of the parish development model. So that in hard to reach areas, they need to be sensitized. There is an awareness that has to be done. This training that are conducted to train the parish chiefs should not only stop there. We need community dialogues to tell them that you can come and participate. An officer from trade raised an issue that there are some regions, especially the Muslim, that have been failing to participate in this program. So if they are sensitized very well, they will come and participate in program.
The Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, Betta Amongi, has launched a World Bank-funded Women Enterprises Empowerment Project. The GROW project is geared at increasing access to entrepreneurial services that enable female entrepreneurs grow their enterprises in targeted locations, including refugee host districts.
Group Project is responding to the many challenges faced by the Ugandan women entrepreneurs, ranging from social, economic and psychological, including lack of networks, capital shortage and low capacity to expand and grow their businesses.
Majority of the women are in informal sector. So we need to move women from the informality to the formality. And what do you need to do to move women from the informal sector to the formal sector? Number one is that woman who has started a business, for them to move, they need to grow their business with cheap capital. Most of you are borrowing at 24%, 30% per year.
Components of the project include support for women empowerment and enterprise development services, access to finance for women entrepreneurs, enabling infrastructure and facilities for women enterprise growth, and program management, policy innovation and evidence generation.
What our partnership is going to do is that we will take up the cost of training, the cost of accommodation of the women, so that you're able to use these services free of charge and you can then sell those products.
The Private Sector Foundation Uganda and Uganda Industrial Research Institute are the project implementing partners.
Now, this project that you see is the largest project for women in sub-Saharan Africa, where World Bank has put in money. And it is the first largest grant Uganda has received for women. And it is only coming for the first time in the Ministry of Gender and Labour and Social Development.
Dependency on foreign technology has been cause and consequence of our inability to move to modernity. And if we got those technologies, we have to develop the human capital necessary to run those technologies and manage them. Highly skilled manpower.
The 4-year, $217 million project that will be rolled out across the country targets over 30,000 women-owned enterprises and at least 180,000 entrepreneurs. The $217 million project, abbreviated as GROW, is a holistic program that is geared at empowering the Ugandan women in business. Dennis Igoa for UBC News.
And that's all we had for you this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Sharon Chomdusha. Stay tuned for more programming coming your way. Bye-bye.
UBC Inspiring Uganda.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the Parish Development Model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The Parish Development Model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
It is also bringing back the other night economy. People now can trade in the night.
The road is of good quality. Vehicles passing to Congo, they now use this road, shortcut.
You see very many new apartments which have come up.
The percentage of road network which is becoming in a good condition has gone up. We just need to make sure it's sustainable and have a follow-on program to ensure that the infrastructure does not collapse.
That when we come to the end, we'll maintain the momentum of building roads and making sure people are in safe places.
The local governments, whereas they are involved in the implementation process right now, they should be preparing their capacity to take over the maintenance and management of these facilities.
Don't miss the USMID documentary on UBC TV on the 19th February 2024 at 9:30 p.m. and 20th February 2024 at 7:45 p.m. showcasing infrastructural development in municipalities.
UBC Inspiring Uganda.
My name is Damali Sali and I welcome you to this episode of the Ideation Corner. The Ideation Corner is a space where ideas are discussed and dissected. And today I host Vanessa Nakate. Vanessa is a climate justice activist and the author of The Bigger Picture, and she's going to tell us all about it. Vanessa, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm very happy to be here and to also, know that through this many people can get inspired to do something about the environment, and about the lives of the people. I remember in 2018, I started to do a lot of research about some of the challenges that the people in my country, Uganda, were facing. And when I realized that climate change was one of those challenges, I was actually surprised. We all know climate change in school to just be the changes in weather patterns over a long period of time, but we are not taught the reality of what's actually happening on the ground. So I started to read more about climate change to understand the causes, but also understand the impacts of this crisis. And as I read through the impacts, I realized that some of these things were already unfolding in Uganda. For example, the floods, the landslides, the droughts. So with the rising, global temperatures, there are these changes in weather patterns causing these climate disasters. And when I saw how much it threatens so many people, threatens Uganda as an economy, because we know that Uganda heavily depends on agriculture, for the survival of so many communities. And where the climate crisis is, it means, crops getting dried up in intense heat, or farms getting destroyed and washed away because of landslides or because of floods. So this was a challenge for so many people, because in the end, a lack of rain means starvation for so many people. And too much rainfall means destruction. And when you're in Kampala, sometimes, you don't think about what happens beyond your family or beyond your house. But when you start to look and you see how people's lives are impacted, for example, in places in Kasese, areas, around Mount Elgon, you realize how much climate change is actually real and affecting so many people. So in that time, I decided that I had to do something about it. I had to use my voice and my platforms to demand for climate justice and to also create awareness, because there is need for people, to know about this challenge. Because when people know, they always find something to do. Mm-hmm. If you know that you're in a burning house, you do everything you can to get out of that house. So that's why we believe creating awareness for the climate crisis is so important, because we need as many, climate activists as possible to rise up for the people and for the planet. So what I did personally, being inspired by Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who had started the climate strikes, I also started striking every Friday and sharing, most of my strikes on social media. I started to reach out to different communities. I started to reach out to schools as well, to create this awareness about, climate issues, but not only to create or communicate the crisis, but to also communicate the power in people's voices, the power in people's actions in transforming this world and making it a better place for all of us. So along the way, I have, got to work with different activists within Uganda to do different projects, different programs, and I think it's been 3 years now of activism. And like I said, last year, my book was launched, A Bigger Picture. And, A Bigger Picture tells a story of me when I started my activism and why I started my activism. But it doesn't just talk about my story, but it also talks about stories of different activists in Uganda, different activists across the African continent, because I thought it was important, to have more voices, more stories, and more experiences included, in this book. Every activist has a story to tell, and every story has a solution to give, and every solution has a life to change. So it was very important for me to have, different voices, different activists, have their work mentioned and talked about in a bigger picture. And, in a bigger picture, I also talk about some intersections of climate change and the other issues, that affect people. For example, I remember months, when I had just started striking for climate, many people, would make comments like, why are you fighting for the climate? And yet, you could fight for poverty instead, to end poverty, because that's what's happening in many places. But then I started to educate myself about how, poverty intersects with climate change. And I got to understand that as, the climate disasters, as they destroy people's homes, as they destroy schools, as they destroy people's farms, people's sources of income, people are actually left in poverty, in extreme poverty. So I got to understand that the climate crisis actually creates poverty traps that are passed on to, generations in communities. And I realized that we can't have, climate justice without, poverty eradication. And we cannot have, poverty eradication without climate justice. The two go hand in hand. I started to explore more and learn more, about, things like zero hunger, and realizing if climate change is leaving millions of people with no access to food, that means that we can't achieve zero hunger without climate justice. We've seen, the recent Eastern African drought that left more than 26 million people with no access to food and no access to water. So in a bigger picture, I also talk about these connections of, the climate crisis and other issues.
Okay. I am so glad that in the bigger picture, you first of all, you're detailing your journey.
Yeah.
But then also you're giving a platform to the other climate activists who are in the space. And I also then remember also you tend to talk about there can be climate justice without racial justice. So in what context do you put that?
Yeah, that's again another intersection of climate change and, for example, racial injustice. Racial injustice and climate injustice can be talked about in a number of forms, and I'll just mention some of them. For example, we realize that, Black people or Black communities are the ones who are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Starting with the African continent itself, historically, Africa as a continent is responsible for less than 4% of global emissions. And yet many Africans are already suffering some of the most brutal impacts of the climate crisis. I've given you examples of what climate change has done in Uganda, examples of how, the Eastern Africa drought that left more than 26 million people dead, and not dead, hungry and failing to access, food and water. And then, there was a tropical storm Anna that landed in Southern Africa just a few days back, and it has caused massive destruction, in areas of Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, leaving, over 80 people dead, thousands, losing their homes. Schools have also been destroyed, power lines have been buried, and people, have no access to electricity as well. And when you look at how the climate crisis has been affecting some of these regions, you realize that just in 2019, Cyclone Idai ripped apart large parts of the African continent, and it's still the same countries, Mozambique, Malawi, that were so impacted, and it left more than 1,300 people dead. So the climate crisis is, already destroying vast parts of the African continent. And that's an injustice, because in the end, we know that Africa is one of the least contributors of CO2 emissions. We've also seen Black communities, not just in Africa, but even in the United States, even in Europe, even in the UK, many Black residences are in places, that are exposed to air pollution, to water pollution. I can give the example of the Flint water crisis, that exposed so many Black children to unclean water. There's a story of a young girl in the UK whose death was recently connected to air pollution, a young Black girl. So these are some of the issues of race and climate, and also to bring it in the perspective of who is being listened to in some of these spaces. While Africa, while the African continent is on the front lines of the climate crisis, it is not on the front pages of the world's newspapers. And we've seen different activists from Africa struggle to have their voices listened to, their voices platformed and amplified, probably through interviews or through conferences. The previous, COP26, which just ended last year, I saw how some, activists couldn't make it to the COP because they couldn't access vaccination because of vaccine iniquities, because they couldn't access funding or accreditation to attend the conference. So in the end, how can we have climate justice if the most affected people are not in the climate conversations? So in the end, we can't have, climate justice without racial justice. The two go hand in hand and intersect with each other, because it's like one system. And if one part of the system is broken, eventually the whole system will come crashing down.
Okay. So you did mention Africa contributing less than 4% to the
global emissions.
And on top of that, our African voices not necessarily being given the audience the platforms to be able to air that, and yet they're the same communities that are affected the most. What do you feel can be done about that by, first of all, the people themselves, the Africans, but then also maybe also the governments?
We as African people, we have a responsibility to speak out for ourselves. If you're not given a table, you create that table for yourself. So we have a responsibility to speak out for ourselves and use our platforms to demand for climate justice, for the African continent. Because when you really think about how it is one of the least emitters, and yet it is among the most affected by the climate crisis, that enough should, give you the push you need to demand for climate justice for the African continent. And when it comes to the African leaders, there's a huge responsibility on the African leaders to unite behind the science, to unite with the activists and help us in demanding for climate justice. And one of the ways is through some of the investments, that African leaders accept in African countries. They're harmful to biodiversity, to ecosystems, to the planet itself. So one of the ways is saving investments, and having investments that don't harm the people and the planet, but investments that ensure that the people are protected and the planet, is also protected. And the other thing, as we go, as we head towards COP27, it's going to be in Egypt. It's going to be on African land, on African soil, So it's a huge opportunity for African leaders to really unite together and put demands on, climate issues like climate finance, to talk about the loss and damage that is already happening on the African continent when it comes to the climate crisis. Because when we as activists, we will speak and demand, but we need the leaders as well to come in, the ones who end up in those negotiation rooms, to come in and unite as African leaders to put a demand, especially for climate finance. And talking about climate finance, you've asked what needs to be done for the African continent, to make things better. We need climate finance. We need climate finance for adaptation, climate finance for mitigation, climate finance for loss and damage. As we see the climate crisis, loss and damage is already happening. Loss and damage is leaving so many people with nothing. People are losing cultures, people are losing their histories, and we can't adapt to lost histories. We can't adapt to lost identities. We cannot adapt to starvation. We can't adapt to, the losses and the damages that are happening because of the climate crisis. So it's important that a demand is put, a demand for climate finance, because we know who caused the climate crisis and we know who needs to pay, for the climate crisis. This is a matter of reparations, giving climate finance to vulnerable countries that are, already suffering the worst impacts of the climate crisis, so that they can easily build greener economies for their citizens. We've had questions like, we've seen scenarios where African nations are facing so much pressure to transition, and yet this transition also threatens, people in terms of employment. So the question is, how are African nations going to transition, to greener economies without having to bury the people in extreme poverty? So there is a huge responsibility for the global north to provide climate finance for adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, so that African nations can easily build and transition their economies, to more sustainable economies, so that in the end, the planet is protected and people are protected. People are not buried into extreme poverty and more suffering.
Okay. Thanks. You mentioned COP27, and recently you guys were at COP26.
Yeah.
I didn't follow it very closely, but of the people views I saw, it appeared that people felt like nothing. It was more talking.
Yeah.
Talking. Do you feel that was your same opinion? And also, do you think then COP27 will be any different?
Well, I can first say we've had 26 COPs.
I forget.
And, with all these 26 COPs, emissions have continued to rise. Temperatures have continued to rise, and the climate crisis has continued to escalate, and people have continued to suffer. And while at the COP, there are these celebrations within the halls that, something was happening, something positive was happening. And then, as the COP was almost coming to an end, there's this climate tracker that shows us that we are on a pathway of 2.4 degrees Celsius, with all the commitments and promises, that have been made by the leaders. So you realize that 2.4 degrees is global devastation for so many communities. It is a death sentence for so many communities. 1.2 degrees is already,
we at 1.2?
Yes.
And we are on a pathway to get to 2.4?
Yes, that's what the climate tracker showed.
We're going to double it?
it's more like doubling it. Yeah. So 1.2 is already disastrous for so many people, especially, on the African continent. So what will 2.4 degrees do? So you realize that even with the commitments, we are still speeding up in the wrong direction. And, as we head to COP27, my message to leaders is that commitments will not stop the warming of the planet, and promises will not stop the global temperatures from rising up. The pledges will not stop the suffering of people, because we've had all these COPs. I haven't attended all of them, but I'm certain they've been full of commitments and promises and pledges, and yet the situation continues to get worse. So it won't be commitments or promises or pledges that will save the planet. It will be real action, and that's what we hope to see at COP27.
Okay. You did talk about climate finance. My question, me not knowing much about this climate crisis, I follow it from from an observer end. Is there already money for climate finance? Have they provided that money, or are there just commitments for climate finance?
Well, a few years back, $100 billion was promised by, the global north for vulnerable countries to be able to, cope with the climate crisis. And it has not yet been delivered. So those are some of the, the challenges that we see, in the climate conversations, that even the promised money has not yet been delivered, for the countries that are vulnerable to the climate crisis. And we also saw no separate fund was put in place, for loss and damage at the COP26. But we hope to change that, with continuous activism at COP27.
Okay, that's great. And then you did talk about, I noticed that you're taking a big push or position on ensuring that while most people know you, they don't know the other activists, but I see that you're really working hard in ensuring that it's not just you, there are others.
Yeah.
And in fact, come to think of it, even your book is that you also put your journey, but also the journeys of others.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is? And then also I would like to know, how many other activists have you put in who are not necessarily from Uganda, but other African countries?
Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to tell their own experience, I may have, statistics about what is happening in Kenya, maybe through the news, but I don't have that personal experience. And yet another activist who lives in Kenya has that, personal experience, and they can easily articulate what is happening in their communities. So that's why I think it's important for every activist to tell their own story, to tell their own experience. I think that's how, we will ensure that we have, climate justice when everyone is really listened to. That's why it's really important for people to know that the climate movement is more than one face or two faces or three faces. It has millions of faces from different parts of the world. And in a bigger picture, like I said, it goes beyond activists in Uganda, but you'll find, activists from Kenya, Nigeria, Togo, more activists from, the African continent.
Are there any measures that you guys are going to take to ensure that now that COP27 is going to be in Egypt on the African continent, that we will have more African voices, African faces present, advocating? Because they can shut you up by just not showing you, even if you're there. It's happened to you, you were there and then they cut you out of a picture. Twice, I think it's happened. Or they record and then you're part of the table and then you're not in the camera view of that. Or you're there and then they don't even mention your name. But what can the African activists do that at least this time COP27 is on the African continent? What can we ensure that our voice now is even louder?
Well, I think the first step would be ensuring that we have as many climate activists as possible from the African continent. And that's something we are also working on and discussing, to ensure that, organizations support activists to go to the COP. I think that is the first the first step in ensuring that the different activists from Africa are listened to, that they make it to the COP in Egypt. And well, I think the other thing about ensuring that we are not removed from conversations or, cropped out. You just never know when you're going to be cropped out or removed from a conversation. But, what happens after that, that maybe that incident, that is what we need to do to speak out, against, those things, to continuously speak out against that and continuously use our platforms. Because again, we are not, in the editing spaces of those pictures or, those places where they decide who to be shown, but we can still continue to push our voices even when such incidences happen. We ask why, they have happened. I think that's very important.
Okay. We've been talking about the bigger picture. Where can someone find the book? How much does it cost? Which bookstores is it in?
Well, a bigger picture can be found at African Writers Trust. They are located in Charlie Wajala, but you can find them on Twitter, and they can give you information on how you can find them. And then Aristoc. I won't say prices because libraries set their own prices. So yeah, but you can Aristoc, that's in Kampala, and African Writers Trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write?
A couple of months. I wrote it. I started writing it in 2020. The period of when COVID, when we were in lockdown. Yeah, so a couple of months, maybe 10.
10, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I always try to understand people's process of writing because I also wrote a book.
Wow.
And it was a different process. It was a hectic process, I felt.
Oh, sorry about that.
So, and why did you decide to write a book?
Well, I never actually decided to write a book. I was reached out to by a lady. Her name is Johanna. Yeah, she reached out to me, and she was working with a publishing company in Germany, and she was telling me how it would be important for them to publish a book that was written by me, and how they would like to amplify and support my voice. And that's when I started to think that I could write a book. So it wasn't my initial thought. It was initiated by someone else.
Okay, but it's good that you jumped on it.
Yeah, I'm glad I did.
Because in a way you're trying to balance that while you're being cropped out and cut out. At least there's someone saying, no, actually, I want to hear your voice. I want to give it an opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
And then, was it you then who decided also to include others? Because you could have just written your story.
Yeah, it was, when I decided, when, the lady reached out, now I started to ask myself, what would I write about in this book? Yeah, so the different, things I write about, it's just me writing. Yeah.
Okay. So Vanessa, we've come to the end of our discussion. Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there any lasting words you'd like to say, anything you want to emphasize?
Yeah, I think I would just love to say that, whoever watches this or listens to this, that Earth is our home and it's our responsibility. And we can all find something that we can do, to ensure that, our planet is protected and also the people are protected. It doesn't matter the resources that you have. No action is too small to make a difference, and no voice is too small as well to make a difference. When we put all these actions together, we realize how much we are actually transforming not only our communities, but transforming, the world. And lastly, to just say thank you to you for giving me this platform to talk about climate activism. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, there you had it from Vanessa Nakate. You can get her book, The Bigger Picture, from Aristoc or the African Writers Trust. please look out for it. Please go find it. Please listen to the interview. Please take her advice on no voice is too small, no action is too small for us to protect the environment. Thank you so much.
UBC Inspiring Uganda. Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
All on your public broadcaster. UBC Inspiring Uganda.
The organizing committee of the Janan Womb Day Celebrations 2024 wishes to inform all invited guests that you are requested to take COVID-19 tests between the 13th and the 14th of February at the following venues. Public officials, you will take your tests at the Office of the Prime Minister, Conference Hall, Platinum Wing, Mulago Hospital, and Platinum Lumumba Avenue. Religious leaders, you will take your tests at the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda offices.
These American products are violating the public sway of African nations by empowering conception preventions, yet we have no enactment in our constitution that advocates for the anti-conception medication or the number of children one is supposed to give birth to.
How to use the EIPP. Welcome to the Electronic Investors and Protection Portal, your guide to seamless investment processes in Uganda. Step 1. Navigate the portal. Start by searching Protection statehouseInvest.go.ug. On Google, use the menu bar for various tasks. Step 2. Submitting a complaint. To lodge a complaint, click Report. Fill out the form, submit and note your reference number. Step 3. Making an inquiry. For inquiries, select Inquiry. Complete the form, submit and record your reference number. Step 4. Whistleblowing. To report anonymously, choose Whistleblow, fill the form and submit. Step 5. Accessing FAQs. Find the answers to the common questions under the FAQs link. Step 6. Seeking information. For investment cycle guidance, hover over Resources, click Resources Center and explore. Step 7. Exploring services. Hover over Services for stakeholder offerings like business registration. Step 8. Tracking progress. To track submissions, click Report, select Track Inquiry or Complaint. Enter your reference number and check your email for updates. Need more help? Call +256 326 100 630 or email info@statehouseinvest.go.ug.
We started with 1 acre. We started with poultry, then we added cows. Milk, a day we get 100 liters. When the president was around in 2019 in campaigns, he was in Chenjojo at a rally, was still insisting on 4 acre model. Then that's where my husband raised up, was like, no, Mr. President, for me I have 1 acre. I practiced what you are telling these people. Now I'm able to earn such and such amount. Then was, wow, you bring Mr. Nyakana, tell us. And our 1 acre is not yet to its 100%. As you see, we've been growing up in income, educating siblings, the income security. Now if you even want a loan, they've been calling us, come and give you a loan. People, they know that you have income, even tomorrow you can what? You can pay. Then President talking to us, we've been receiving a lot since from that announcement. That is a free advert for us.
My name is Amos Muhinduki. I'm the chairperson Loans Committee for Chaka Central Produce Dealers Circle. We received the funds in 2021, so we have gone 2 years down the road. We got 30 million, but at the moment we have around 52 millions. We have 54 groups from within Chaka Central alone, and around 34 groups have benefited. We're expecting another funding from government so that we can also bring the other groups on board. We give them loans. First of all, they pay shares and also save 10% of the loan amount that they want, and they take the loans for 6 months.
Hello. Kanu Edith Nakarema is my name, and I head the State House Investors Protection Unit. The unit was established by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. On the 13th of December 2023, His Excellency the President commissioned an electronic investors protection portal, which is a platform that is online, and its link is protection.statehouseinvest.go.ug. The portal has 4 main functions. It provides guidance to authentic government ministries, departments, and agencies, and that's a way of protecting investors from falling in the hands of wrong elements or the corrupt. The second function is it provides mechanisms for reporting or making inquiries. The third function is it provides feedback and also ensures enforcement.
Investors are being harassed for bribes. That's why I have appointed Nakarema now to handle that side of the investors.
In conclusion, Uganda's president has put investors as his key priority, the protection, the guidance, and the support of investors, and that's why he established the State House Investors Protection Unit to ensure that the investors are effectively guided, protected from the corrupt, and supported by all government ministries, departments, and agencies in collaboration with the private sector. I thank you.
We are 6 women. We started our business of a nursery bed and have so far run it for 4.5 years. We started a circle and would get money out and keep sharing. After accumulating enough money, we started to buy seedlings and plant trees. The little would get would pay school fees for our children as women. Personally, I am also educating my grandchildren. One is in senior 4 and the other is in senior 1.
hati alipizi msinia 1.
Prayers, Almighty God, who in infinite broadness organize our parties of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of certain just of humanity, we beseech you to look upon the benefit your servants, whom have been pleased to call them perform such important trust in this land. Let your blessing descend upon who assembled, and grant that they may, as your presence, treat and consider all matter that shall calm their deliberation, in so just and fair manner promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to your church. Amen.
Item number 2 on the order paper, communication from the chair.
Thank you. Honorable colleagues, I welcome you to today's sitting. It's a day where I thought we would have a universal of dressing, but it seems the politics have not allowed us. I thought today we would put on Noop colors to celebrate Valentine's Day. So the only one who has tried to come close is the government chief whip, but he put in serious shades. Okay. Yes. And of course, being Ash Wednesday, that one has no dress code, of course, isn't it? Honorable colleagues, today being Ash Wednesday, the Catholic Chaplains has organized Mass at 5 p.m. So our session will end at 5 p.m. so that I can allow you, honorable colleagues, want to go for prayers, and I'll also be joining you for the prayers in the conference hall. And Mass will be celebrated by Right, who has already joined us in the VIP gallery, together with and Diocese of Nebi this year will be the one organizing Uganda Matters celebrations on the Catholic shrine at Namugongo. So part of the celebrations for today and Mass, I hope we can support them, and we give them all the kind of support needed to organize the successful Matters celebrations. I hope we shall also be receiving reports from the Anglican side, who will be organizing on the other side, so that we can equally give support to all groups that are organizing. And with that, honorable colleagues, I had wanted us to really go straight to the statements, so that matters of national importance, we handle them tomorrow when we have Prime Minister. We have very critical statements here, I know, for which you would want to comment and give your views. So that was my view, that we can handle matters of national importance tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, the ayes have it. Very good. But on my communication, I would allow one person.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to start by congratulating you and your dear wife on your 15th wedding anniversary.
Thank you.
Indeed, I want to confirm that you are a very romantic Muchiga. Yes. To have
Honorable Russe.
Yes.
Honorable Russe, you can repeat that. Yeah.
Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, not many people are celebrating their wedding anniversary on such a day, and moreover it has coincided with the Ash Wednesday, the beginning of a very holy week, and in your communication you welcome the Right Reverend Raphael Wokoraj. I must also add, as the chairperson of the Catholic Chaplaincy, that you are most welcome to Parliament of Uganda. This is your second time here. The first time we received you as the new Bishop of Nebi. Today again we receive you to bless Parliament, but most of all to usher us into a very special 40 days walk with Jesus Christ, and to help us reconcile ourselves and to be better Christians. So this is a call to all of us, Catholics, non-Catholics, to join us today at 5 as we support Nebi Diocese, because they will be animating Martyrs Day this year. Next year we will support another diocese, just like the Right Honorable said. We will also be open to support the Anglican diocese that will be animating Martyrs Day. So we are one in this, and we are together in this. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I wish you a very fruitful day together with your dear wife Anita, and our regards to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable. Colleagues, you've seen really, even Honorable Bahat couldn't contest that I'm the most romantic Muchiga living. So this one I have it without any contest. So, Honorable colleagues, next item.
Item 3.1 on the order paper, statement by the Minister of Education and Sports on the transition from O-level to A-level under the new curriculum.
Thank you. Honorable Minister and honorable colleagues who had brought issues to do with the education sector under matters of national importance, during debate, you will raise your issues.
Thank you so much. Right Honorable Speaker, permit me on behalf of the people of Moyo and on my own behalf to congratulate you upon your wedding anniversary and for being exemplary, living exemplary Christian life for our people. I also, and pray for us, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I stand on behalf of the Minister of Education and Sports to present a statement to this floor Parliament on the transition from O-level to A-level under the new curriculum. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, the statement contained herein is drawn from and embodies clarifications concerning matters of national importance that was raised yesterday by Honorable Harold, the Member of Parliament for Bukonjo East County, on the transition from O-level to A-level under the new competence-based curriculum. We all may recall that this House approved the rollout of the lower secondary curriculum in 2019. And consequently, the Ministry of Education and Sports commenced the implementation of the curriculum in the calendar year 2020, starting with Senior 1. Between 2019 and 2023, Right Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Sports, among others, developed and circulated syllabus documents to schools and trained 63,649 teachers across the country. The training is ongoing, and it is a continuous process to empower the teachers to implement the new lower secondary curriculum effectively. I am glad to inform you, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members of Parliament, that the pioneer cohort of the new lower secondary curriculum will be sitting their end of examination cycle in November 2024. The Ministry of Education and Sports is addressing currently all challenges relating to the competence-based curriculum so as to consolidate the curriculum before we progress to the A-level curriculum. Right Honorable Speaker, UNEP has embarked on stakeholders' engagements to increase awareness on the new lower secondary curriculum and what changes is expected in areas such as reporting of results and certificates. Following the review of the lower secondary curriculum to a competence-based, learner-centered curriculum, the Ministry of Education and Sports found it necessary to revise the upper secondary curriculum, which is the A-level curriculum, as a continuity of the improved teaching methods. Mr. Speaker, to this end, the Ministry of Education and Sports has so far undertaken the following preliminary activities for the review and the rollout of upper secondary curriculum. Number one, the ministry has undertaken a needs assessment, that is an evaluation, a study that was conducted on the current A-level syllabus to determine its adequacies. And to that effect, Mr. Speaker, there is a full report that is available on the website of the Ministry of Education and that of National Curriculum Development Center. Number two, we consulted with universities, tertiary institutions, and other education stakeholders on the recommendations of the need assessment study. Number three, we developed the A-level curriculum framework as part of an outcome-based education reform design, which is aligned to the O-level framework. Number four, in addition to the documents to guide the implementation, the Ministry of Education and Sports, through the National Curriculum Development Center, has developed syllabus materials for the proposed 25 subjects to be offered at A-level. And the ministry has reviewed the teacher training strategy to incorporate lessons learned in O-level rollout of the curriculum. Mr. Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, the Ministry of Education and Sport is undergoing government quality assurance currently and approval processes for the A-level curriculum, which will at a later time involve this House. And the members of Parliament will participate and contribute accordingly. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Sports has budgeted in the financial year 2024 and 2025 for continuation of the review of the A-level curriculum to make it competence-based. Ministry will ensure all preparations in terms of training of teachers, instructional materials are all made prior available and adequate before the implementation. Mr. Speaker, UNEB will also administer a transitional examination for all O-level curriculum, which will be a one-off examination to the following categories of people. For those who sat the UCE examination in 2023 but could wish to repeat the examination. For those who registered but did not sit the examination or dropped out due to sickness or due to other conditions. For those who missed the registration for the 2023 examination due to various reasons. For adult learners who are studying on their own or at any learning facilities. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Minister of Education and Sports encourages all the categories I've just read to register with UNEB and not to miss this opportunity. Thank you, and I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, I've just seen on page 3, bullet A, where you refer Parliament to a website. Kind of Honourable Minister, that's not how we work here. If you have a report, you lay it on table. Okay? And I will request you, see a way of communicating with your team. By the time we finish the debate, you lay the report on table. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, most obliged. By the time I complete, I will bring the report and lay on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, honorable colleagues, I'm of the view that since I said the debate should cover all issues to do with education, and these are statements for which we are not passing resolutions, they are for information, and we are enriching the minister's statement to go and address some issues. We receive both statements from the minister, and we have a general debate at once. So, next.
Item 3.2, statement by the Minister of Education and Sports on the measures against airline schools that charge exorbitant fees in clear violation of the directives issued by government.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. I stand on the floor of Parliament to present a statement on the issues of school fees charges. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Education and Sports shares the concerns of honourable members of Parliament about the prohibitive school fees charges, which are denying access to education for a number of learners and compromising the government objectives of providing affordable, quality education for all and increasing equitable access to education. Right Honourable Speaker, it's against this background that the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports then, in 2017, set up a school fees review committee that was chaired by Professor Kayanja Frederick. The findings and recommendations of the committee were considered and guidelines issued while taking into consideration the liberalized nature of the economy and the consequent need for government to regulate rather than control levels of fees by designing guidelines which schools must abide by. Right Honourable Speaker, from the recommendations that were drawn by the committee of Professor Kayanja, the ministry has come up with a number of measures.
This procedure, Honorable Siranyi.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I rise on a procedure matter. When you read the report that the Minister is presenting to this House, it is the same report that was presented with everything a full stop, and this is the report that we sent back the Honorable Minister the other time to go and make it more comprehensive. The same report was presented to the House. There is no change in the full stop if you review what is on the Hansard. So, would it be procedurally right for the Minister to present the same report when we sent the Ministry away with that report to go and make a more comprehensive report? And that time, the report was being presented by the Minister for Higher Education, the Honorable Muyingo. It is the same report, no full stop, no commas, quotes, everything is the same. Right, Honorable Speaker.
At least there is a change of date on the report and the signature. So it can't be the same. The signature is different, the date is different, it can't be the but anyway, anyway, that was just on a light note. Honorable colleague, I would say let the Minister present, okay? Because, listen, because the issues that are coming up are recurrent, okay? Are recurrent. So let's just wait, and then when we go on to debate, we shall bring these issues. So let the Minister finish. Because, honorable colleagues, I haven't read the statement. Now, for you, if you've read ahead of me, who is presiding and I haven't received the statement, how do I base on what if you're misreading me? Yeah, so, Minister, please just read the statement. Okay?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for your wise guidance and the protection. Certainly there are differences. Allow me to present, Right Honorable Speaker, from the recommendation that were drawn by the committee, the ministry came up with the measures to curb the continuous rising fee charges. These measures were communicated to schools and the general public through press release and circulars by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education. And they were issued in 2018 and 2022. And Mr. Speaker, I'm going to lay them on the table thereafter. And these are the directives in the circular. 1, no school, private or government, shall increase school fees for whatever reason without written authorization from the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, or from the Chief Administrative Officer, or from the Town Clerk. Number 2, other cash and non-cash requirements outside the approval school fees structure are strictly prohibited. All non-cash items must be catered for in the school budget. Number 3, schools implementing UPE and USEs and universal post-O-level education and training shall strictly adhere to the policy implementation guidelines with parents, where parents decide and agree to contribute towards an emergency in the school and permission is sought and granted by the Permanent Secretary. No learner shall be excluded from school on account of a parent's failure to pay the agreed amount in accordance with the Section 9 in bracket number 3 of the Education Act of 2008. As soon as the emergency is resolved, the school shall stop charging the emergency fund. Number 4, where a school board or school management committee has to employ additional teachers to those on payroll, permission shall be sought from the Permanent Secretary in case of secondary education and Chief Administrative Officer or the Town Clerk in case of primary schools to use part of the capitation grant towards the payment of the additional teachers. Number 5, in line with the above, 4, Head teachers are warned against employing additional teachers before all the teachers on payroll have been assigned the minimum required teaching load. All teachers without a minimum teaching load should be promptly reported to the ministry in case of secondary education or to respective local government in case of primary schools for appropriate deployment. All schools must respect staff establishment ceilings for both teaching and non-teaching staff as provided by the Ministry of Public Service. Number 6, private schools must adhere to the approved staff employment guidelines. They should formally recruit, contract, and effectively manage and develop staff on reasonable employment terms. Number 7, all government and government-aided schools should desist from taking commercial loans. Any school applying for a loan must seek authorization from the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development through the PS, Ministry of Education, as provided for in the Public Finance Management Act of 2015. These guidelines have been widely circulated to institutions of learning across the country through local government, Kampala City Council Authority, and the Directorate of Education Standards. Right Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Sports prepared a cabinet paper on school fees regulation. However, Cabinet, in accordance to fulfill the pledge of free education for all, directed the Ministry of Education and Sports to submit another memo on compulsory, comprehensive, free universal education for all. Mr. Speaker, the ministry, it is important to note that Cabinet under Minute 109 CT 2023 approved a list of unacceptable items which schools are not allowed to charge, including fees for remedial learning and construction. And indeed, Cabinet, Mr. Speaker, approved the comprehensive, compulsory, free and universal education for all. The ministry is currently embarking on the process of implementing the compulsory, free, universal education for all, and will brief Parliament accordingly on the progress at an appropriate time. Right Honourable Speaker, in conclusion, and honourable members, Ministry of Education and Sports is committed to ensuring free and equitable access to quality education for all. We therefore call upon all stakeholders to play their part accordingly and support the ministry in delivering her mandate. I beg to submit, Mr. Speaker, on page 5, you see Annex 1, which is part of the approval item by Cabinet on 17th March 2023. These are the items not allowable items at school. And before I leave, allow me to submit all the circulars that the Ministry of Education and Sports have so far sent to all schools. I beg to submit the report on the review of school fees charges in government and private schools that was way back in July 2027. I beg to submit. I beg to submit, Mr.
2027, Honourable Minister.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, and I wish to retrieve that. I wish to repeat. Mr. Speaker, I beg to submit a report on the review of school fees charges in government and private schools that was made in July 2017. I beg to submit. I beg to submit a circular that was sent by the Ministry of Education and Sport to all schools in October 29 in 2018 on guidelines on school fees charges. I beg to submit. Mr. Speaker, I beg to submit circular that was sent to all schools on 4th February 2020 on Circular 01-2020 on charging and increasing school fees without permission. I beg to lay. Mr. Speaker, I also beg to lay on table a circular number 13 that was sent to all schools on 11th January 2022 to all chairpersons, Board of Governors of secondary schools, School Management Committee, and all the heads on habitual increase of school fees charges on reopening of schools for calendar year 2022, and I beg to lay on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable colleagues, the Right Reverend Bishop is accompanied by Father Kawesa Posiano, the chaplain for the Catholic chaplains in Parliament, Father Romchan Arbat Jekir, Father Jachan James Maxwell, Father Ruga Joseph, and Father Ben Choa. Thank you. I'm seeing one whose name I have not been able to get for now. And also in the house we have Father Nin. Yeah. So, Honourable Chair Education Committee, is he around? Yes. Honourable John Twesie.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable colleagues. I just want to make comments on the two statements that have been made by the Honourable Minister. On the first one of transition from O level to A level. And two, when you refer to her statement, she's also saying that UNEB will conduct exams for these leftovers in the old curriculum. When we are interacting with UNEB, when we are considering the National Budget Framework paper, they commented and they told us that the time for those transition exams will be June, July. But I would have been comfortable if the Honourable Minister had mentioned the specific date when those exams would be conducted. Then two, on the issue of school fees, exorbitant fees payment. Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, as you are aware, we brought a report here and the report was turned to committee. And I'm surprised that the same information we are asking from the ministry, which they are not providing to help us complete the processes, the same information is being tabled here, which they never tabled in the committee. But I would, Honourable Members, since this information is here in Parliament, you allow us, I work with the move of the motion at that time concerning exorbitant fees payment, that is Honourable Saro Pendi. We are going to harmonize a few things on Monday. On Tuesday, Right Honourable Speaker, you allow us to bring that report so that we exhaustively discuss the matter on item 3.2. I beg to request, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Chair, please. Let's respect time provided for in our rules of procedure. Okay? This matter has been long overdue. Your committee has delayed so much. That's why we are having all these issues pushing the minister, to come and bring the statements here. So please ensure that on Tuesday you are ready. We shall put you on order paper to present a report of the committee.
Much obliged, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Procedure, Honourable Jonathan Odur.
Right Honourable Speaker, when you guided that the two statements be presented and debate ensues, I had hoped that item 3.2 would be presented as captured on the order paper. And for emphasis, the item is the measures against errant schools that charge exorbitant fees in clear violation of the directives issued by the government. And that is what I'd expected the minister to present here. These directives, we are aware, and they have been issued since 2020, as she has alluded here. The report we wanted was to tell us that the Honorable so-and-so who owns this school charging very exorbitant school fees has been sanctioned as such. That the Honorable Dr. Joyce Moruchu, who owns this school and is the minister in the education sector, has been sanctioned this way. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to move that item 3.2, which has not been adequately answered, be stood over, and the minister be sent back, and the debate only concentrates on item 3.1, because what has been presented here is not actually what we required on the order paper. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let me first speak around two more procedures, then I give, if it's in relation to what Honorable Jonathan Odur has raised. Is it connected to what Honorable Jonathan Odur has raised? Because I cannot have procedure, okay? So I want to know if it's related so that I answer at once. I guide at once. Honorable Saro Pendi.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the voices of the poor people can only be heard in this parliament and through members of parliament. And when we delay to tackle some of these issues, then that to me is an injustice. And the people continue to suffer. I raised this motion over 2 years ago. But as you can see, the problem is actually becoming worse to an extent that, Right Honorable Speaker, you can even see nursery schools charging 4 million shillings for a nursery kid. 4 million shillings. And Right Honorable Speaker, I want to completely concur with the Honorable Honorable Dur, that let us focus on the issue of the curriculum and then allow the committee and us to go and discuss so that we can have a report presented to this House and then we can discuss in detail. Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, I even have another motion that has been on the order paper and off regarding the early childhood education policy. There is a policy in place that is not being implemented. We have left the nursery education to the private sector. And yet we have a policy where brought by government, passed by government, where this early childhood education should be incorporated into the primary schools. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to agree that let's focus on the curriculum, and then we are going to handle this matter. Hopefully next week we have a whole session to discuss this issue regarding the education sector in this country. So, Right Honorable Speaker, that is that's the procedure issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I stand on a matter of procedure. It shall be noted, Right Honorable Speaker, that this would be the second time, if we are to turn away this report as presented, it would be the second time we are sending the minister, the third time, Mr. Speaker, that we shall be standing over this report because it is inconclusive. Right Honorable Speaker, would it be procedural okay? If we continue, if this House continue to send away the minister and demand for a better report without indicting or reprimanding the same minister, wouldn't we be breeding impunity? Right Honorable Speaker, wouldn't it be procedurally okay if you would allow me to move a motion without notice that this House moves to reprimand the Ministry of Education over its failure to bring a report that would enable this House to tackle a matter that is so pertinent to the education of our children? Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be procedural okay if you would give me that opportunity, sir? I beg to move.
Thank you. Now, honorable colleagues, first of all, for clarification, we didn't send away the Minister for Education. What we sent away was our own Committee of Parliament, which processed a report which we felt was not satisfactory. And we said, no, committee, go back, improve on this report, capture A, B, C, D. Okay? So that one I want to first make it very clear. But I'm still, I'm still ruling and, So, number two, Honourable Minister, like Honourable Jonathan Odur put it, the question was very simple. You put in place all these measures. You said, these are the guidelines, all schools must adhere to these guidelines. So our question was, we know there are schools which are not adhering to these guidelines. What are you doing to them? What punitive measures have you put in place? Or there are no sanctions. That's what we wanted to do. Honourable Minister, do you have any sanctions in place for schools which have not adhered to your guidelines? Honourable Minister? Honourable Minister? If you want time to come back and bring.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. 2 points to respond to. One is about the date for examination that was raised by the chairperson.
No, Honourable Minister, you're responding to the Speaker's question?
Thank you,
because
Speaker.
we are on point of procedure.
The issue raised is about whether we are able to pass sanctions or not.
Yeah.
But I want to say that the law has given some gaps in terms of statutory instrument and regulatory framework. And that is why when the ministry, Mr. Speaker, when the Ministry of Education took the framework paper for regulating such that we eventually get the statutory instrument to regulate these schools, Parliament, in their wisdom, advised the Ministry of Education we should come in with a comprehensive paper that is going to put in place, to bring on board the compulsory universal free education. And that goes along with increment in funding, which is 309 billion. And that will cater to the additional funds which schools are charging in terms of recruiting additional teachers, adding capitation grant, and other school charges. So once that is put in place, which we are hopeful in the coming financial year, we should be in position to implement, then we should be in position to really cut down most of these issues of school fees charges.
Thank you.
That is the advice we got from Cabinet.
For the record, that was Cabinet, not Parliament.
Yes, that was Cabinet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Attorney General, guide us. Government issues guidelines. Guidelines are violated. Such a guideline is issued without sanctions.
Right Honourable Speaker, allow me to address my mind to that and come back and report on what the law says on that issue.
Thank you. Honourable Semaju.
Mr. Speaker, you will allow me to raise this procedure with a short background. You did tell us here, Mr. Speaker, that the reason the Minister of Education, the substantive minister approved by this Parliament, cannot attend Parliament is because of COVID. That's what you told us, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering if the minister who has no time for Parliament can have time for schools. So the procedure issue I am raising is whether this Parliament must not interest in itself in what is taking place at the Ministry of Education. These ministers, you are roasting one after another. First, my friend Ogwang brought a statement, chest. Secondly, Jesse Muyingo brings a statement, chest. Now you are about to chase Honorable Kaduchu. They take more than 3 weeks without meeting the minister. They can come here and pretend. 3 weeks. Sometimes a whole month. That's why they keep bringing the same statements, just changing their signatures and dates. Because the one running the ministry is not accessible, and you said here, COVID. Related to that issue of procedure, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Education here in the last Parliament brought a report here of the President Yoweri Museveni Kaguta Tibuhaburwa running a school in Kanyareru where he pays 700,000 per child in that school, but he also pays 10,000 for a full year for a child in UPE school. So if you want sanctions taken against the exorbitant charge of school fees, even before you go for Muyingo, we start with Mr. Museveni, who runs a school where he pays personally 700,000 per child in Kanyareru, and then he pays 10,000 per child in UPE. Then we can deal with the others. That's why they can't take sanctions, because they themselves violating the...
MP for Nyabusho's order.
Right Honorable Speaker, this is a house of record. Kanyareru is a sub-county in Nyabusho's constituency, a constituency that I proudly represent here. I want to state on record that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, whom he calls Mr. Museveni, does not have own or have a school where he pays school fee as he of the Republic of municipality where honorable member of parliament standing here to speak, there are primary schools and secondary schools in Chira where government of the Republic of Uganda, headed by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, pays capitation grant and government aided. That is the position as it is. Is he in order, right honorable speaker, to mislead this august house that the president owns a school and pays school fees?
Mr. Chairman, you wanted it add on before I can. Your Chairman, Education Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I came in the Parliament of Uganda, the 10th Parliament, and right from the time we resumed Parliament in 2016, I was on the Committee of Education. In 2018, I was the Vice Chair. I don't remember any moment when the Committee of Education brought a report relating to what Honorable Semjo was saying. Would you bring the evidence in the on the website and lay it on table? So, yes, I need your protection, right Honorable Speaker, so that I conclude.
Please, it's you on the microphone.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, this Parliament of Uganda is a parliament that bases itself on evidence. So, I would request through you, right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Semuju, my best friend, to bring evidence of what he's talking about. In my view, what he's telling us is not well substantiated.
Thank you. Now, Honorable colleagues, Honorable Minister, I wanted to say something for clarification.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, the whole top management of the Ministry of Education and Sports were together with the Minister of Education. We were together with the Ministry of Education, regardless of where, at Nakasero. We were together with the team from UNEB, having meetings, looking at the O-level results, which is to be released tomorrow. And before that, I personally had face-to-face extensive meeting with the Minister of Education and Sports, who is also the First Lady. We discussed on this matter of the curriculum transition. We discussed on this matter of school fees before I came on this floor of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, we must put the records clear. Is my colleague, Honorable Ibrahim, in order really to stand on this floor and to say that the ministers of state in education do not have time to even meet the minister after 3 weeks? What? Is he really in order when I've just been with the minister on record before coming here? Thank you.
Now, Honorable Minister, you might find Honorable Semuja has tried to access the First Lady and has failed. And therefore he thinks it's difficult for everyone. But anyway, you've given that information to him that you've met the minister and you've been meeting. I remember when I was in cabinet, the First Lady was attending cabinet, and I just wanted to clarify this, that the issue, Honorable Semuju, the way I brought it here, I told the House that the COVID restrictions around the First Lady and the President, by virtue of her being a wife of the President, required that we continue doing COVID tests all the time. Listen, which was not sustainable on our side. So for convenience purposes, I have seen many ministries here where I have never seen a cabinet minister here, but they are moving. So that's why we as presiding officers decided, when she sought our guidance, we guided her and said, no, you don't need to be here. When we need you, we shall inform you. Okay? So that's you ask me, okay? You don't direct. Okay? Number two, on the issue raised by Honorable Kashwinji on point of order, you know, when you become specific